So Xiaomi has already been a busy beaver in 2021, spaffing out not only a spangly new flagship smartphone, but also the budget-friendly Redmi Note 9T, which sadly was a bit of a letdown compared with last year's Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite. But already Xiaomi is looking to make amends on that front with this absolute unit here, the Redmi Note 10 Pro. This bad boy boasts an OLED screen with 120Hz refresh, you've got a 108 megapixel main camera slapped on that arse end, and you've got enough sexy specs to get you flying at least half-mast. Now, at the time I shot this unboxing video, I still don't know the official UK price of the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro, that's all under lock and key, but what I can do is take you on a full-on tour of the hardware, the software, show you exactly what to expect, and then I'll be bringing you my full review very shortly. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Yep. So what you got in the box is one Xiaomi Redmi Note 10 Pro. The ever-dependable condom case, this time with a frosted finish. Ooh. Got a chunky-ass user guide, a proper beefy charging adapter, and a bit of Type-C USB shenanigans. So quite a generous little package. Now let's check out the phone. Now this right here is the Onyx Grey model of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and I've got to say it looks very smart and stylish. I'm definitely liking the camera array, even though it does form quite the bump on the arse end of the Redmi Note 10 Pro. There's certainly a lot going on right there. I'll be exploring the camera tech in a bit. But apparently it is both ultra and also premium. And thankfully Xiaomi has opted for minimal branding around the back end. They haven't done a Poco and gone crazy slapping logos about there or anything, just a dinky little Redmi in the corner there. And in Xiaomi's spec sheet, the only materials listed under design were Gorilla Glass 5, but I reckon that's just the screen because that back end certainly feels like plastic to me. It's definitely got a bit of flex to it. But yeah, a bit of Gorilla Glass 5 action. You've got a pre-installed screen protector on the Redmi Note 10 Pro as well, and then that bundled condom case as well. So yeah, if you're the kind of cack-handed who's constantly dropping their phone or whatever, then no worries. And no official IP rating for water resistance on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, but that's pretty standard once you get down the sort of budgety end anyway. Anyway, looks like we've got some juice in that battery already, so get the Redmi Note 10 Pro all set up and I'll take you on a full-on tour of the rest of the hardware and the software. Oh, and good news when you're slapping your SIM inside the Redmi Note 10 Pro as well, because you've got dual SIM support and also a separate slot for your microSD memory cards. Okay then, the Redmi Note 10 Pro is all set up and ready for action, and what you get here is the latest, freshest Android 11 OS, but as usual with the Xiaomi smartphone, you get a nice bit of MiUI 12 slathered on top, 12.01 to be precise. And as any long-term techspert viewers will know, I'm really getting on with MiUI in this latest incarnation. It's got more of a stock Android vibes. You've got the likes of the Google feed when you swipe this way. You've got your apps tray by default, thank Christ. But you do also have a few little bits of MiUI flair, such as, for instance, the rejiggered recent apps menu. And I really like that new control center as well, which you can get to by swiping down the right side of the screen like so. It's 100% cribbed from Apple, this one, but it's, you know, makes a change because normally it's them cribbing from Android. And if you dive on into the settings, you'll see that the Redmi Note 10 Pro has all of those great MiUI features that we love very much, including the likes of the video toolbox and the game turbo feature. The video toolbox is absolutely brilliant. You can drag this out on the screen whenever you're running a supported app, the likes of YouTube. You can record the screen, screenshot, and one of the best options is this one, play video with the screen off. Now this is bloody brilliant if you've got like an audiobook or a podcast or something on YouTube that you're watching and you want to just like go outside, you want to slip your phone in your pocket and continue listening. All you need to do is turn that feature on, and if we turn up the volume, you'll see the video is still playing in the background. And that game turbo feature is fantastic news for anyone who likes spattering strangers' brains across a virtual wall in the likes of Call of Duty and PUBG. As you can see, it adds a variety of gaming related features. And if you swipe out the little game turbo menu as well, you'll see you've got access to plenty more features besides, including the ability to block your calls and notifications and all that good stuff. You can record your screen as you're blasting people to bits. You can open up various apps in a little mini display. Just so, for instance, if you're trying to look up a walkthrough for whatever level you're stuck in a game, that's pretty damn handy. No, and by the way, I apologise for the state of my hands. I know they're even worse than usual. That's because I've been out in the garden ripping down ivy. I haven't been in a fight or anything. Last time I was in a fight, I was like 14 years old and actually had hair still. Other features here on the Redmi Note 10 Pro include an edge-mounted fingerprint sensor, something that's massively back in fashion in 2021. And so far, just from preliminary testing, this seems all right. Of course, now it's not going to do it, is it? There we go, working absolutely fine. And the Redmi Note 10 Pro also supports face recognition as well, which again seems to work really well. You've got raise to wake support, and as you can see, the face recognition is nice and nippy. And the Redmi Note 10 Pro sports all of the other features that you would hope for and expect in this kind of smartphone, including a good bit of NFC action, which is great, and that's fully Google Pay certified, so you can use this for the contactless payments. And as you can see there, we've got 128 gigs of storage on board. A fair chunk of that already taken up with apps which were pre-installed, although I have chucked a few of my own on there now. But that is still my primary beef with Xiaomi smartphones, is the fact that you get so much crap lumped on here, the likes of TikTok and everything gets installed on there without you even wanting it. Got sodden Facebook, eBay, all kinds of shenanigans. Now, one of the undoubted highlights of the Redmi Note 10 Pro is that 6.67-inch OLED display. It's an AMOLED panel, and I've swapped to a lighter background now so you can see that there's actually pretty skinny bezels surrounding it, but it is a perfectly flat display as well, which is good news obviously for gamers and the like. Now, this is a full HD plus panel, which means nice, crisp, fine detail when you're checking out your photo collection, when you're just kicking back and saying, F it, I'm just going to watch a good bit of Netflix, bit of Disney Plus, whatever, while away a merry afternoon. Because this is an OLED panel, you get really deep blacks, which means nice, sharp contrast. You get really poppy colors as well, especially when you go into the display settings and bump the color scheme up to saturated. Those colors just slap you right in the ruddy chops. You got nice wide viewing angles as well, another benefit of OLED, and the brightness levels as well, super bright on that top level, so you'll have absolutely no worries seeing this thing even on a really bright day. You dive on into the display settings, you've also got the likes of the reading mode, which makes things easy on the eye when it's 2:30 in the frickin' morning. You're still wide awake despite the fact that your body is utterly exhausted. Good old anxiety, can't beat a bit of that. And one of the other amazing things about the Redmi Note 10 Pro is the fact that you've got a 120Hz refresh rate, and on an OLED display, that is definitely no mean feat. Just look at those frickin' iPhones, which cost the best part of $1,000, if not more, and still only offer the bog standard 60Hz. And because you've got that OLED screen, you've also got the benefit of an always on display feature as well, as you can see there. So overall, very stunning stuff indeed. Let's have a shifty at the audio smarts here on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and Xiaomi has shoved on a stereo speaker setup, so you don't just get that bottom mounted speaker, you also get media pumping out of that top earpiece speaker as well. Let's just try bumping up the volume, see what the performance is like. Launchers or anything like that. This is as close as you'll get to Virgin stock Android outside of a Pixel smartphone. And that stereo output is really not bad at all. The earpiece speaker isn't quite as powerful as the bottom mounted speaker, as is oft the case, but it's not a tinny piece of crap either. And on that top volume, not super loud and powerful, but it should be all right for just enjoying a bit of YouTube, Netflix, whatever, in a fairly busy, noisy environment. But the super good news is you do get a dedicated headphone jack, as you do on most budget blowers these days, so you can plug in when you want to enjoy a bit of music. Otherwise, you've got the usual Bluetooth smarts and all that good stuff as well. And let's move on to performance, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro is powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 732G chipset, backed by 6 gigs of RAM. That's the same platform that powers the Poco X3 NFC, an absolutely fantastic budget smartphone. Definitely check it out if you're looking for a new blower around that sort of £200 price point. And the performance so far here on the Redmi Note 10 Pro seems absolutely fine. A few little judders here and there as I'm zipping through Android really fast, but overall the performance is solid. Unfortunately, Xiaomi has put a block on Geekbench from running because this is pre-release. It hasn't even been launched yet, in fact. But you can expect similar sort of performance to that Poco X3, which scored pretty well in Geekbench, 569 for the single core and 1712 for the multi-core. However, the Snapdragon 732G does not support 5G. I know a lot of people still aren't really that bothered about 5G. It's not particularly widespread in a lot of countries. Here in the UK, it's starting to roll out though. So if 5G is something that you'd be interested in, certainly it should be coming to most areas in the next couple of years here in Blighty, well, you might want to jump on board with the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite instead. On the battery front, you've got a 5020 mAh cell stuffed inside the Redmi Note 10 Pro. That 20 mAh obviously makes all the difference. Got the usual battery saver and ultra battery saver modes on board as well, but I wouldn't expect you'll need to touch those very often. I'd imagine that this smartphone should keep you going all day long, even if you make an ample use of that camera, doing lots of gaming, streaming lots of media, all the good stuff. You've got support for 33 watt fast charging here on the Note 10 Pro as well, which really ain't too bad at the sort of budget to mid-range price point. No wireless charging, but you generally have to bump up your budget to that sort of upper mid-range to get that kind of feature. Now let's finish off this unboxing of the Redmi Note 10 Pro with a squint at that quad lens rear camera tech. And what you have here is a 108 megapixel primary snapper, though of course it doesn't take photos of that 108 megapixel resolution by default. You'll have to jump into the special ultra high res mode in order to take advantage of that. Gotta say though, the processing speed's pretty nippy even at that ultra high res mode. As you can see there, very little hanging about waiting for that image to be fully realized. You've got the usual set of camera features, including Xiaomi's AI camera mode as well, which can just assess the subject on offer and suggest switching to a different camera mode whenever appropriate. And that'll also tweak the camera effects as well based on what you're actually shooting. At any point you could also swap to the ultra wide angle snapper as well, which as you can see just offers a pulled out view. And so far the color reproduction, everything doesn't seem to take too much of a hit when you're using this one. And there's also, as you can see, a 2x zoom mode as well, but that's not actually using optical zoom, that's just a basic digital zoom, helped along by that high resolution main camera. Now, proper telephoto lens were being asked too far, even for the Redmi Note 10 Pro. Instead, the final two lenses slapped here on the back are a depth sensor and of course one of those ruddy macro lenses. You can swap to the macro mode at any point with a little tap of this little icon up here, and as you can see, super macro modes. It just allows you to get in super close to your subject, take a picture of those cold, dead, sparkly eyes. You've usually got to get the distance just right, otherwise you'll end up with a fuzzy shot. And frankly, with the 108 megapixel primary sensor, just take a picture with that and then crop in. And you've got plenty of other bonus camera modes on here as well, including good old reliable Pro mode, which allows you to mess around with the white balance, the shutter speed, ISO levels, all that good stuff to get a very precise kind of result. And if you scroll on this way, you've got that portrait mode as well, using that depth sensor just to add a nice bokeh style effect behind your subject, just to help them really stand out. You've got various cinematic effects you can add, so let's add a bit of rainbow action to Mr. Monkey here. Oh my goodness, that is truly dazzling. This one appears to be the acid filter. And you can also change the severity of the bokeh style background effect as well. And then if you flick along to more, you've got absolutely tons of other stuff. I'm not going to go into everything, but you've got the likes of the night mode, which will just help with those low light shots. And of course, plenty of video bits as well. I'll be fully testing this out for my in-depth review of the Redmi Note 10 Pro anyway. As for the video, well, when you're using that primary sensor, as you can see there, it defaults to 1080p at 30 frames per second, but you can bump that up to 60 FPS or stick it all the way up to ultra high definition 4K at 30 FPS. And you've got some good features in there, including the track moving object one, which I find is really, really good. This only works at full HD, unfortunately, but certainly on the Mi 11, it really did the job when you're trying to shoot a hyperactive young child jumping about all over the place off their tits on sugar. You can pan in at them and basically just make sure that they stay in focus even when they're running towards you, away from you, all over the place. And that's up around the front of the Redmi Note 10 Pro. You've got a 16 megapixel primary lens, which as you can see has full HDR support, those AI smarts, all the good stuff. You can once again shoot a portrait shot as well, even though you don't have a dedicated depth sensor. And that seems to work nicely indeed. And that's not actually too terrible a selfie, certainly not by my standards. And you've got a bit of 1080p video action if you want to get your vlog on as well. And that right there, in a nutshell, is Xiaomi's Redmi Note 10 Pro. It definitely looks like a seriously nice bit of kit, especially that gorgeous OLED display with its 120Hz refresh rate. There's no 5G support here, unlike the Mi 10T Lite, but apart from that, looks like a solid bit of hardware and some pretty slick software overall as well, depending obviously on your views on MiUI. Stay tuned for a full in-depth review of the Redmi Note 10 Pro once I've actually used it as my personal smartphone for a good few days, gotten a feel for it. I'll be testing out the camera, the gaming chops, all that good stuff. If you've got any particularly burning questions you'd like me to cover in that review, or if there's any other big budget smartphones you'd like me to see me put this phone up against, definitely let me know as well in the comments. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell to stay tuned for all of that sexy content, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.